Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Chase Longmiller from the Sheboygan Fire Department, and you are listening to Dr. Richard Gasaway on SA Matters Radio. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 101 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from Towson, Maryland, where I'm in town to deliver a flawed situational awareness program for the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute's National Fire Service Staff and Command Program. This is the 15th consecutive year that I've presented for MIFRE's Staff and Command Program. Thank you to Director Steve Edwards, Deputy Director Pat Marlatt, Program Director Jonathan Hart for the faith and confidence in my mission and my message. If you missed episode 100, you may want to go back and listen to it. I'm giving away copies of my new book, Situational Awareness Matters, Volume 3. That's a $40 book. Listen to the episode to learn how you can claim your free copy. In today's feature segment, I interviewed 4 members of the Sioux Falls, South Dakota Fire Department who were involved in a near-miss incident where their apparatus, Truck 7, came into contact with a 33 kV electric transmission line during a routine truck check. There were many extenuating circumstances surrounding this event that may have contributed to this extremely close call. You're not going to want to miss this interview. But before I jump into this feature segment, I'd like to take a moment to thank the departments and organizations that have hosted some recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events. Your efforts to bring this valuable and powerful training on situational awareness and high-risk, high-consequence decision-making to your members and others in your region are greatly appreciated. Included in the recent tour stops are Los Angeles County Fire Department Fire Officers Conference, the Howard County, Maryland Fire and Rescue Department, the Toms River, New Jersey Fire District Number 2, and where I'm at now, the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute's National Fire Service Staff and Command Program. By the time this episode airs, SA Matters tour stops will have also been completed for the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference in Orlando, Florida, where I will be delivering the closing keynote for that conference, in the Minnesota State Fire School in Alexandria, Minnesota, where I'll be giving a keynote address there, and the Company Officer Development Institute in Columbus, Indiana, a week-long Company Officer Development Program that I do will be complete, as well as the Madison County LEPC program in Anderson, Indiana. If you're interested in joining me for an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, on March 31, I will be at the Community Fire Department in Houston, Texas. April 1 and 2, the Montgomery County Fire Chiefs in Texas. April 9, the Delaware Volunteer Firefighters Association Conference in Dewey Beach, Delaware. I'll be giving a program on generational leadership there. April 12, the Minnesota Department of Pipeline Safety Conference in Breezy Point, Minnesota. I'll be delivering the keynote address there on what is situational awareness and why does it matter. April 13th, a program for the North Metro Fire Department in Broomfield, Colorado. April 14th, the Castle Rock Fire Department in Castle Rock, Colorado. April 19th, the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I'll be delivering a half-day pre-conference session on situational awareness. April 20th, I'll be doing a program for the Texas A&M Forest Service Agency Staff Retreat in San Antonio, Texas, a half-day on flawed situational awareness and a half-day on leadership. April 23 and 24, a Company Officer Development Institute program in Fort Wayne, Indiana. April 30 and May 1, a situational awareness program for the Lebanon Fire District in Oregon. While I was delivering programs in southwest Minnesota, I had an opportunity to stop by and visit my sponsor, Midwest Fire. And I got a chance to sit down and talk to a few of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Let's listen into a conversation that I had here as I asked account executive Dalton Lingbeck about custom-built versus stock-built apparatus that they might have in inventory and how to start the process for designing and building a fire truck. All right, Dalton, do you guys do you do custom builds, or do you do stock builds, or do you do both? Do you maintain an inventory of trucks that people can just, buy today and have delivered tomorrow? How does all that work?
Well, we actually do both, and as much as we can keep stock trucks on hand, we have an inventory, but that's the hard part. We do a lot of custom trucks every year. It's what we do. I mean, we are here to build what the department needs. But we also do stock trucks because a lot of people are in immediate need of a truck. We do stock 3000s, we do stock 2000s, we do stock brush trucks. It really depends on what has gone out the door. We try to slot out 2 production spots a quarter for stock units. And on our website, you'll see stock units on our website. You'll see descriptions for them. You'll see specs, but they're not necessarily always in stock. They're standard builds, quote unquote. So the best thing for you to do is if you're in need of a truck sooner than later, don't hesitate and call us up and see what we have on hand. Because right now, I'm looking out the window into our showroom, and we have a stock 3000 sitting there right now. It's ready to go whenever, whoever needs it.
Yeah, Dalton, you just threw a question into my mind. And if somebody is, thinking at some point they're going to need a fire truck, how far in advance of needing a fire truck should somebody at least start to make an inquiry and start to have a conversation and establish a rapport and relationship? I'm guessing it's something short of waking up today and saying we need a truck tomorrow, but putting some thought in the process of what would we want our new truck to have and whether they have a committee or not. How far you have a lot of dealings with a lot of customers, and I'm sure you see ones that really have it together and ones that are struggling and challenged. How far out for those ones that you would call the success stories? How far out before they actually get to a purchase does this dance or this process begin of working with somebody who can help them through the process?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, we're going to kind of not include the people in need of apparatus immediately.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Most success stories, honestly, are 6 months and more. You really want to get an idea of what truck you need and what truck you guys are going to spec out. The specking out process is the hardest part because you're talking with a lot of people trying to get ideas on the paper, and that's what we are here for. We're here to talk about that. But the cool thing about with us is obviously, like I said in a previous question, is that we are direct communication, right? We're directly at the facility. So any questions, all questions that we can answer are going to be answered no matter what. But what you want to do is you want to get specs on the paper, you want to go through those specs, and you want to make sure everything is accurate, because the worst thing that can happen is for a truck to be incomplete or wrong when you take delivery of it. That's what we try to make sure does not happen. So like I said, try to prepare as long as you can beforehand. Obviously there are situations where it can build up a couple weeks, and here we go. We try to make it as easy as possible for you, try to make it as comfortable as possible for you. But yeah, I mean, prepare.
Oh, there you go. If you're thinking about buying a truck, don't wake up on Monday and say we need to buy a truck on Tuesday. Put some thought into it. Reach out to Midwest Fire. Have some conversations and start to get some ideas flowing. As you heard from Dalton, the best success stories are those that start about 6 months before they're going to actually buy the truck, of just gathering thoughts and ideas and trying to see what's available and what's best for them. So check them out, MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Sarah Atchison and all the staff at Midwest Fire for your awesome commitment to improving first responder safety. I sincerely appreciate your support of my mission. Hey, if you're interested in attending an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, head over to SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. Here's hoping there's a tour stop near you and we'll get a chance to meet up. More than 500 agencies on 4 continents have hosted a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop event. Has your agency? No? Don't wait until you have a significant near miss or a casualty event. Be proactive and get your program scheduled. If you're interested in hosting a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop in 2016 for your department or association, just contact me on the SA Matters website. Click on the Contact Us link and we'll get something set up for you. I should note that I'm actively booking 2017 programs now. So if you're looking to book something in 2017, this would be the time to secure your date. Here's a tip on how to host a program at a reduced cost. I schedule many of what I call companion programs. These are programs on adjoining days to other programs. So if you see I'm delivering a program within a couple hours of your department, you think you might want to tag along as a companion, contact me. You can save as much as 20% off of the program cost for being a companion to an existing program. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment with a near-miss event that occurred at the Sioux Falls Fire Department, Station Number 7, on January 2nd, 2016. All right, so today I have 4 firefighters from the Sioux Falls Fire Department who had a very, very near-miss incident, and they agreed to come onto the show and share their story. And guys, why don't you just start by introducing yourselves and tell the listeners who you are and maybe a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, my name's Ryan Cox. I'm a captain here on Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. I've been on the department now for 10 years, just this last month. When this happened, it happened a day right before my birthday, so I'll never forget that. Just didn't almost make it to my next one. The other thing, too, that was going on in my life right at this time is we actually just lost my mother-in-law to a tragic car accident the month previous, so I had a lot on my mind at this time when this incident happened. I have 3 kids. I have a freshman in high school, a 7th grader, and also a 5th grader. So they keep us pretty busy, and we like go to the lake, camp, and just spend a lot of time together as a family.
So my name is Tom Reel. I have been with Sioux Falls Fire for 12 years now. I been married for 17 years. I have 6 kids. Oldest is I have 4 boys and 2 girls. My oldest boy has autism. He's 14. And then my youngest is 2 years old. I was the driver who was operating the truck on the day that this happened. Everything was probably going good that day. I don't have anything on the back of my mind that was happening. Me personally, everything was going well. And I guess I'll pass it off now to Firefighter Jay McManigal.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Firefighter Jay McManigal. I've been on the Sioux Falls Fire Department for coming up on 8 years. I've got 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 19-month-old, and I've been married for 13 years. So it's pretty much me. We do a lot of family stuff together, spend a lot of time as a family.
Nice.
So,
all right.
Pass it up to John.
Thanks, Jay.
Hello, my name is Firefighter John Alvey. I've been on the department for about 5 years now. Married with 2 kids. I got a daughter and a son. Daughter's 8-year-old. My son is 3. We got an acreage just recently. We purchased an acreage, so I kind of like being outdoors, working in the farm or working on our garden and stuff like that. So that's all I got.
Nice. Okay, so the day of this event was January 2nd, 2016. Somebody pick up the mic and talk us through how that day was starting out, and whether you guys had any calls yet, or what was what was the setup to lead us up to the actual near miss event.
Well, up there at Station 7, as far as the entire department goes on Saturdays, is our truck inspection weekly maintenance day. So we inspect all of our apparatus and our equipment on Saturdays. Up at Station 7, we also have a maintenance garage attached to that, where we have mechanics that work out of there. So we have a few extra vehicles that we have to do for our truck inspection, in addition to the truck that had the incident, Truck 7. Our shift starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we pretty much start right away after our 8:30 radio test with checking our equipment. So we have a pretty busy day with doing that. The day in question, January 2nd, I had done 2 other fire trucks. I'd done one aerial prior to this, and then a rescue truck. And then I was going to work on the last one, which is Truck 7. So we didn't have any calls that day in the morning. So me as the driver, most of my responsibilities are actually checking the apparatus from top to bottom with lights and the tires, and checking all the fluid levels, seeing if there's anything out of the ordinary, anything broken. Why the firefighters basically check most of the equipment that's on the truck, whether it's the power saws or the fan, or making sure everything is there, nothing is broken. They check all of our EMS equipment. So basically my responsibility is all the normal day-to-day maintenance with the apparatus. And that's what I was doing at the time. I had taken the truck out of the apparatus bay, and we have a fuel pump in front of Station 7. It's about 30 feet to the south of the building on the actual approach to the station. So I had pulled the apparatus out there, and where I was getting fuel. And that's one of the things that I don't normally do as a normal day-to-day, which kind of got me out of my routine. Normally I would do that at the end, but I decided on this day to do that at the beginning. So in doing so, that had set me up to be right under the power lines. So Station 7, just to draw a picture of the station, about a quarter of the end of the approach has got high-tension power lines that run across it. And when I had put the apparatus by the fuel pumps, I had actually positioned it directly underneath the power lines. When I got out, I made a mental note that they were there, and kind of put it in my mind to be almost like a training exercise, that I would see that I had some obstructions. I knew that they were there. There is a tree also right next to the fuel pump that I would have to go around also. But like I said, in my mind, I chalked it up that I knew they were there. They've been there for a long time. I'll just work around them, no big deal. So I fueled the truck, and then Firefighter John Alvey wanted to run the pump with me. And so I decided to run the pump first, which normally I do last, and then set up the ladder. So what we did was we ran the pump through its operations after I got fuel, and then we set up the outriggers. Normally, when we do the truck check, I would have the truck closer to the building. I wouldn't have it this far out. So I decided to leave it by the fuel pump instead of moving it. We set up the outriggers. We pushed it. That's at four outriggers on this truck. I set those up, and then I had Firefighter Alvey at the time helping me do that. And when we set it up on the captain's side, which would be the right side of the apparatus, put the outriggers out, I noticed on those outriggers they have a light that flashes to let you know that they're coming out. One of those lights had rusted off. It was on that captain's side, the right side of the apparatus. The rear outrigger, the light was just kind of dangling off. And so we decided to take a look at that a little closer. So my thought initially was just to clip the wire off on that light. And then Firefighter Alvey thought, well, I'm going to go talk to Captain Cox about that, because I'm not sure if that would give us an alarm. Maybe we need to cap that off. So he went inside. I continued to run the truck through its testing. So I raised the ladder. I saw that the power lines were there. I just raised it a little bit, went to the left, so counterclockwise. There was the tree. I raised it up over the tree and then put the ladder towards the fire station, which would now be facing to the north. Then when I got to that position, I raised the ladder all the way up to full extension. As I was lowering the ladder down, there was a little bit of a bounce to the ladder, I kind of noticed. And not having been on this truck a lot, I was wondering if that was normal for that or not. When I had set up the outriggers, I had set it up where all the four wheels on the back, both the axles on the back, I should say, were raised completely off the ground. And normally it's not something that I would do. I would leave it all the way down, but I decided to test the outriggers and see how they were working. So I thought maybe with the bounce, it was because I had the outriggers all the way up. I lowered it back down, so it was still vertical, but I retracted the ladder all the way back down to the turntable. And as soon as I had done that, Captain Ryan Cox and Firefighter Alvey had come out and were looking at the outrigger light. So I stopped and asked them what they thought about the light, what should be done about that. And they were telling me they thought they might clip it off or just cap it off for now. So they were working with that. So I let them continue on, and I continued on with checking of the ladder. What I did, though, in that I could just kind of lost my frame of thought, and my plan initially, when I raised the ladder to go around the tree and the lines initially, was to actually go back the way I came and then set the ladder back down. But instead, muscle memory took over. I'm used to taking the ladder all the way around 360, and I kept it slightly elevated. I think it was at a 60-degree angle, and I brought it towards the front of the truck, which is where the power lines were, and I had it right over the cab. Well, in that time, to finish the truck check, I needed to tilt the cab to check the fluid levels. So I wanted to leave the ladder at elevation, but I didn't want to leave it all the way up there just in case we got a call. So I went to lower the ladder down a little bit, and when I had lowered the ladder down, I totally spaced that those lines were even there, and I basically set the aerial platform right in the wires.
If you can remember, as you were lowering the ladder,
yes,
and it touched the power lines, were you looking at the tip of the ladder, or were you looking down at the turntable controls?
Well, in this instance with this, since it's an aerial platform, I can't really see through the ladder. It kind of blocks my view with the way the platform is set up. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I'm pretty sure I was looking at the controls at the time. Because like I said, I don't remember even noticing or seeing the power lines until I actually put the ladder into them.
Okay.
When I first raised it, of course, I noticed they were there, but when I got across, mm-hmm. and what happened is that these particular power lines, there was 4 lower lines that were 32,500 volts, and then there was the upper high power lines that were 120,000 volts. And I had basically turned the ladder so that it was in between both sets of those lines, and I was okay at that point. It's when I went to lower the ladder down so I didn't have it up so high that I actually laid it right into the 2 lower ones. There's 4 going across there. I caught the 2 lower ones that were closest to the station. So there's 5 lines at different levels of the top ones, but then the 4 lower lines are all basically one across from each other. I hit the 2 lower ones that were closest to the station. Mm-hmm. So when I hit those lines, it took me a little bit to register what was going on because everything was arcing, lights were flashing, and then it was sparking all over. And then before I could even react, the lines just exploded, and then they both came down and had enough tension that they separated themselves. The one set of lines went on the driver's side of the truck and fell in the grass, and then on the captain's side, those lines came down and landed in the parking lot, and they sparked and popped a couple of times, and then they didn't do anything after that. My first thought initially, once I realized what I had done, was A, how could I have done something so stupid? And then B, I am in so much trouble, I don't know what to do. And my first thought, honestly, wasn't even for my own safety. It was to try to get the ladder out of the lines once I realized what I had done. But my controls were fried, and I couldn't do anything. And like I said, it all happened so fast. By that time, the lines were down.
Where was everybody else when this happened?
So that's the good part of the story. Was after I had talked to Captain Ryan and Firefighter John, they had finished what they were doing, and they went into the station to get something else.
To get some parts.
To get some parts or some tools to fix that. And while they were in there, they decided to wash the floor, right, of the apparatus bay quick. And then so they had only been out there like 2 minutes prior to me hitting the lines. They had walked inside, were inside the bay. So thankfully, when I hit those lines, they weren't there, because after looking at the damage to the truck when it was done, right where they were working on that lights, where that electricity came out and went into the ground.
I assume that everybody in the station heard this happen.
Yes, they did, and I can let you. I can let them tell you firsthand inside, because for me, everything outside was loud and exploding, and they were saying that it was really loud for them too.
I'd went out there. Alvey had come in and gotten me out of the office. I was working on the computer at the time, and I came out to look at the issue with the light, and we just kind of both decided, hey, we'll just cut it off because it was just hanging. It was part of a rusted piece that, wasn't holding it up anymore, so we thought we'd just clip it, cap off the electrical line so it didn't short out or anything like that. So we went back in to get the tools. I sent Alvey over to the mechanics side to get the tools for it, and while I was waiting, I just thought I'd just wash the bay out since we had the truck already pulled out. In the winter, we get a lot of gravel, salt, and mud just in our area, so our bay gets a little dirty. And I thought I'd just wash that out before he backed the truck back up when he was finished. Alvey came back over from the maintenance, and I was like, telling him, just give me a second, I'm almost done here. And that's when the explosions, I just couldn't believe how loud it was. And then in our apparatus bay, we have 3 bays with windows in each of the overhead doors, and you couldn't see outside. It was that bright. And just, everything happening so quickly. First, I thought, was that from the light that we were messing with that sparked or something? And I'm like, no. After the second explosion, I go, that's not from that. So I wasn't too worried about that, but then I just couldn't believe it. And the light, the explosions. We have a small door next to the overhead doors, and we started running out to there, and that's when we saw Tom on top of the pedestal still. I won't say what he was yelling because it probably wouldn't be appropriate for the show, but I thought I was going out to find him dead, like thrown 20 yards from the apparatus, smoking, that visual went into my mind at that time when I was running out that door. Mm-hmm. But luckily that's not what happened. And also then he was asking if he could get down. I'm like, no, I just wanted him to stay there until we made sure that all the lines were off, just to get a grasp of the situation too quickly, because everything happened so quickly and it was not expected. And one of the things that Tom didn't really mention too is we just received this truck from another station, so this was kind of new to us also, so it took us out of our comfort zone a little bit there too. And this is a 100-foot bucket truck where we just had a 75-footer before, just an aerial, and so that it just changed some things for us having the new equipment up there. And with that station being put where it's at with those power lines, it's never been a great place to have an aerial truck. Not a very, I don't believe that's the best thing to have, when you've got aerial trucks operating around power lines all the time. And that's just one of the things, too, with the different apparatus, where the truck was placed. You look at all these things now, and, a lot of things stand out a little more now than they did then, but a lot of things had changed. And then also just that day, when you're out there looking up in the sun, trying to look around the bucket, and that's why we've changed some of our SOPs and operating procedures, so we don't have just one person out there operating that anymore. So,
So, Tom's up on the platform. The three of you were down on the ground, and you told him to stay up on the platform.
Yep. Yeah, I had him stay on the platform, and we started just looking around and trying to figure out. The truck was still running at this point. It was also alarming, which we couldn't believe that. And then we were waiting for the truck to possibly start smoking, to start on fire, any of that. And then we saw the lines were no longer touching. We started walking the area, to make sure it wasn't energized. The other thing, too, we noticed is probably 20 yards away, next to the building, there was a piece of concrete that had popped up. And we had just been scooping snow the day before, and I'm like, hey, that wasn't there before. So I walked over to it, and what had happened, that electricity had followed the outrigger down right where we were working on that light. It went in a crack that was in the ground, went down into the rebar, traveled all the way over to that other area that was 20 yards away, and popped up a piece of concrete about the size of a football. And then also the lines went down in the grass. Jay McManigal just took a picture from today or the other day showing the lines in the grass where the grass is dead from the heat from the lines that killed them. So it was, we just tried to take in the situation, see what was going on, and then of course had to call and alert our battalion chief in true fashion, just like with the fire department. And then we get a call, and I had to dispatch another unit to that call because we couldn't, of course, go anywhere.
So what's going through everyone's head at this point?
I thought Reel was dead.
Yeah, John and I both thought Reel was dead when we were running outside to take a look. And then just at that point, just being, 2 minutes earlier, we were standing right where this electricity would have passed right through us and went into the ground. Just the luck that we had gone in to go get that part, and that John was waiting another minute for me to finish washing out the bay quickly, instead of going right back out. Otherwise, we could have been standing right out there when it happened, or just going out the door, because like I said, that electricity that traveled 20 yards to the building, you look at some of the other instances where this has happened to other fire departments, they've started their buildings on fire also, following it back to the building. But just seeing them up there yelling, and that was a huge, huge relief. Then everything else was secondary to that, because having to tell somebody, especially like with Tom, with 6 kids, to be able to keep working in a place where somebody passed away in that manner would have been pretty tough for any of us.
What's going through your mind, Tom?
I guess at the time it was just the fact of my mind. It was relief, I guess, that I was, and a miracle to me that I was okay. But at the same time, it was just really humbling, because it just made me feel stupid for doing it, because I knew that they were there initially. It would have been easier for me if I would have raised the ladder right into the lines and forgot that they were there. Instead of, I got out, I looked up, okay, I'm close to the lines, I'll use it as a training aid kind of a deal, and then to get distracted for a split second and totally space out that the lines were there. So that was my initial reaction. And then, like I said, relief that I was okay. And then, but at the same time, all I wanted to do was get off the apparatus, even though I knew I had to stay put. You're January 2nd, it's cold out there, and you're in front of everybody, you know, if people would drive by or whatever, you know, and you just kind of want to exit yourself from the situation because you feel like, I mean, I know a bird on a wire, you know, but when you actually become that bird on a wire, so to speak, it's just it's weird to know that I'm on the controls the whole time. I don't feel anything, nothing. You think your hair would raise up or something, but it didn't do anything, and that was just weird. And just to me, it's just a miracle. And then the hardest thing for me that hit home with me was the fact of my crew, the two guys that were out there at the time, and what a close call it was for those guys, because had they been where they were, I would have killed them. And that's the hardest. That's been the hardest lesson learned for this, and I'm very thankful that didn't happen. So the other thing that was really hard for me is just the fact of the equipment. I mean, I know it's equipment can be replaced, but to basically ball game or take an entire truck out of service, and knowing that we may never get that truck back, that's also been a tough pill to swallow. And a relatively new driver, been a driver for a little over a year, but I've been a firefighter at this department, another department for 16 years, and consider myself pretty safe. And now to eat humble pie, it doesn't taste very good. So that's been the hardest part, and it's definitely a blow to self-confidence, to say the least. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then I assume somebody of a rank and authority higher than Captain Cox showed up on this scene?
Yeah, our battalion chief, Travis Tom, he showed up initially. Captain Cox called him, and then he showed up, and he positioned himself across the street at the time until the power company could get up there and okay it, because not exactly sure where the lines were down. The lines actually go over our entire parking lot and the driveway, so he positioned himself across the street, and once everything was declared safe, then he came in and touched base with us to see if we were okay and survey the damage. And then from there, dealt with him, and then the fire chief called me later, and Battalion Chief Mike Clausen in charge of training, so our chief Jim Sedaris had called me and concerned about what had happened, and so I have nothing but positive to say about my chain of command, because they really took care of me in this incident, took care of the crew. So yeah.
Once you got off that turntable and it was just the four of you together, maybe after everyone else left, what'd you say to each other?
Yeah, it was just kind of hugs all around, I guess. When I first got off the turntable, I went back in the bunk room and just kind of sat by myself for a little bit. And that's when everybody was kind of coming up there. And we, Battalion Chief Travis Tom, they had got a hold of, did you do that? The electric company?
Yeah.
So Captain Cox had got a hold of Excel Energy to come up for the lines, to make sure that they were safe and to take care of the problem. And then we had a representative from Rosenbauer and one of the mechanics come by the station to basically get the truck back, basically get the ladder back down and get the outriggers back up, so that I didn't have to do that. They had came and checked everything out. And me, I went back in the bunk room for a minute and just kind of let the adrenaline flow through a little bit and try to regain myself a little bit. And then I came back out and helped with putting the truck back away. And yeah, I don't know. It was tough. It was a lot of hugs, at the same time unspoken language, I guess. It's an awkward spot to be in, but at the same time, all thankful that we were alive, and a lot of emotions. So a lot of emotions coming through. So,
did you stay on duty the rest of that shift?
I did stay on duty. They gave me the option to go home I chose to stay. Had I gone through that again, I would have went home for sure. I just, not in a position. And even for me, Jay volunteered to drive, and I don't know. I felt like at the time that wanted to get back on the horse right away, I guess. But probably the first day like that probably isn't the best time for that. I wish I would have went home. Part of my deciding factor for not going home was that my wife and family were out of town, and so I would have much rather stayed at the station with my crew, going through this incident, instead of going home to an empty house, because I sure didn't want to call my wife and tell her this when she's 4 hours away and have her all worried. And I waited until the next day when she got home to tell her. So that was my kind of reasoning for staying at the station. But hindsight, I probably should have, I should have probably went home, if not home, somewhere else besides staying on duty, just for my own personal feelings. Mm-hmm. So,
how about the rest of you? I assume everybody stayed on shift. Would if you had to do it over again? Would you? I mean, it was as close of a call for all of you as it was for Tom. Do you think that in hindsight that the smart thing would have been to stay on shift or to just clock off? I mean, and I'm asking this in the context of as to whether the rest of the shift where you were mentally, were you all in, as far as, being able to maintain your awareness at other incidents, or were you kind of shaken to the point where you could say that you weren't, maybe 100% that day?
I guess with me being the captain, I wanted to be there for my crew, make sure everybody was okay. And like I said, with my wife, she still doesn't understand quite the severity of the incident, but she had just lost her mom actually about a month to the day previous to that in a head-on-head car accident, and her father was still recuperating from the accident also. So to put more on her plate and to have her realize how severe the incident could have been, I chose to stay at work too, just to make sure, the transition, just getting through the rest of the shift with the rest of the crew. At that point, too, we had to switch apparatus, of course, and do some things in the station. So we weren't right back into being available right away. We had hours to kind of absorb the situation. And the nice thing is, we're there for each other. So we were talking about what happened, what could have happened, how we were very lucky that it turned out the way it did. And we had plenty of support from upper management and other staff. We had people from, other shifts even calling us, making sure that we were okay. Just had a lot of support. We have a very good support system in our department. It's getting big, but it's still small enough to where everybody really knows everyone and cares for everyone. So I'm glad I stayed at the station, because then I would have had to explain more to my wife.
Well, that's a nice transition, because each of you have people at home that you're accountable to. So I'd like each of you to share how you had this conversation with your family, and what did you say to them?
This is Firefighter Alvey here. I don't know if my wife truly realizes how close it was. They ended up coming up that night. They were just in town for some reason. I can't remember why. And I kind of explained what happened. And my parents actually stopped by too, because my little brother was going home. And they were a little more concerned than my wife. So I don't know if my wife truly understood how close it was. Kind of how I brought it up is I told her, I said, we had an incident at work. We're okay. And I'll tell you more information later. And that was kind of the first text I sent her shortly after it. After we kind of got everything settled down and switched trucks, and I explained that a power line was hit and how we were working on the outrigger. So I don't know if it truly she realized how close it was.
Did you have any follow-up conversation?
I did more with my father because I think he understood it more than with my wife. And I try not to bring that home per se. We have, my wife's a bank examiner, so she doesn't understand some of the seriousness, I guess, of what could possibly go on. So I talked more about it with my father than I did with my wife.
What'd your dad say?
He just volunteered to say, I'm here to, if you need to talk or, we can do that. He kind of asked what I learned from it, that kind of stuff, I guess. I don't father the advice, I guess, kind of, sort of, in a way, as much as he could to relate to the job. So,
how about someone else?
This is Firefighter Jay McManigal. I called my wife and pretty much told her everything over the phone, and she's kind of a softie, so she was pretty worried about everybody and how everybody was doing, and she was glad we were all doing okay. She wanted to talk a lot about it and see what happened and why, which it's something you can't really explain of why it happened. It's just accidents happen, but she's pretty supportive about it, and she just wanted to make sure everything was okay with everybody, and everyone was emotionally okay too.
I guess I also have a brother on the fire department, so he called me right away, and he's been at our station. So I think one of the problems that we have with describing is a lot of people just don't understand where our station is and the correlation to the lines that we've been talking about. A lot of people might be thinking of just like a regular wood pole carrying lines across. This is one of the metal poles that stands, quite a few feet up in the air. And like I said, the amount of electricity, we're in the industrial park area. So, it only knocked out supposed electricity for like 1,500 people. But the problem is it's the businesses that are supplied by this power. So we have a lot of electricity running through these poles and lines that are up all around our area because of the industrial park. But I think with my wife too, she just, she had so many things on her mind with the, home life things that we've been dealing with. And truth be told too, I don't always bring home everything from work and discuss that with my wife. It's a lot easier discussing it with my brother who's on the department or with my crew because, like I said, a lot of the things we see every day, we don't always like bringing that home and discussing that with our family. Some of the things I pick and choose just to help maybe motivate my kids to do a little better or do a little more around the house and making them realize how lucky we have it as a family. And with my wife, she's a counselor, so she's counseling kids, and so she knows a lot of these things, and she doesn't need that negativity always. But, I do discuss some things with her, but some things it's easier just to discuss as a crew or with my brother or other people on the department because, they understand. You don't have to give them a whole huge background story before you can even talk about just what happened.
Tom?
Well, I didn't tell my wife until this happened on a Saturday in the afternoon. I didn't tell her finally until Sunday night at about 10 o'clock at night. She had gotten home and with the kids, and it's just hard. I didn't want the kids to know what had happened because I want to shelter them from that stuff. And so I waited till the kids all went to bed to tell her, and that was hard. But thankfully, during the day when no one was home, I had talked to other people that were calling. I reached out and talked to the driver that used to be here at Station 6, where I also used to be stationed before I went to 7. Was a mentor to me. His name was Doug Meddy, and I reached out and talked to him. And the funny thing about that was when I did call him, he was at the Green Bay Packers game up in Wisconsin. So that was interesting in itself. But he was very supportive, helped me a lot. And then other people had called during the day. But when I talked to my wife, one of the things she said was she thought that she was kind of under the illusion that now that I was a driver instead of a firefighter, that it was going to be a lot safer for me. So kind of had a chuckle at that, because one of the most dangerous places we work as firefighters is on the interstate around accidents like that and other drivers. And I just explained to her that even as a driver, you still, if we pull on different scenes, we'll still act as firefighters too, depending on what scene we get called to. So there really is no guarantee, but just, shocked a little bit that how dangerous even day-to-day activities can be. So I think that was a little bit of a shock to her, but yeah, she's very supportive of me and concerned about how everything was going, and I think she felt bad that she wasn't there, but it really wasn't in her control, and that was kind of my choice to involve her later as opposed to earlier. So, but yeah, like I said, I can't reiterate how much support I've had from my coworkers here in this room and coworkers on the department and everybody. It's just a big family, and that definitely helped when family's not around. To have that support is a huge deal. Yeah.
Have any of you had a chance to kind of reflect on the possibility of how the lives of your loved ones would have been changed if circumstances were just slightly different on this event? In other words, the outcome would have been a tragedy instead of a near miss that we get to have a telephone interview on. Have you thought about the impact on your family, and has that inspired you to look at anything differently, or to do anything like, and I don't want to put ideas in your minds, but did any of you say, it's been a long time since I took my kids fishing. We're going to go fishing now, or anything like that?
Well, this is Reel again. Speaking for me, just makes you appreciate the little things, I guess. And I guess definitely thought about leaving if I would have left my wife a widow with 6 kids, one of whom my oldest autistic special needs, and the stress that would have caused. There's definitely a lot of guilt with that. It's definitely made me more situationally aware, and just can't take anything for granted, especially in training. It definitely has made me a stronger member of the department because of the support that I got. I definitely put it into perspective for me. It definitely gave me a lot of thought with how I should do things, and I've always been a person that just wants to get jobs done, whether I do it myself or not. And the firefighters are busy checking this and checking that, so I'll just take the truck out and do it myself. And thankfully now we have that SOP that doesn't allow us to do that. We have to have a spotter at all times. But it's definitely made me aware that, okay, I can't do all these things by myself, even if I want to help other people. I have to get other people involved in order to keep myself and them and my other coworkers safe. So that's one thing that's really brought home for me. So I'm going to pass it on here to Captain Cox.
My wife is, she's finally realizing a little more of the severity of this situation when I told her we had to do this podcast. So, I discussed it with her a little bit more, and she said, well, they would have had to put me in a straitjacket because of losing her mom and then her dad recovering. And if this would happen to me, just all in a month's time, she wouldn't have been able to handle it all. And but as for doing things differently, definitely. Just anytime that we go on just call, anytime we step out of the station, I look at things a little differently. the other thing too is trying to take stress off of people around me, because one of the things, back when I first started on the fire department, we had some captains that they'd get quite excited, not always in a positive manner on calls, and that would just create a stressful environment for everybody else around you. But if you keep your calm, everybody operates better. And that's one of the big things that I've really taken away from it, is just to make sure everybody's got a level head on, paying attention to their surroundings, knowing that we're all doing this together as a team, and just watching out for one another. And then also for family, I guess, we've had a lot of tragedy lately, and we have been just making every weekend, every moment that we have, a little bit more family oriented, and that's all. We've always been that way, but just to sit back and realize that we better enjoy these and not just forget these times, because we're having to do that with Carrie's mother. So we have that conversation quite often still, just realizing, hey, we're never going to have that opportunity again because she's gone. And a lot of things, their entire lives would have changed if one or more than one of us would have passed away at that incident.
I just make sure I give my kids a hug now, whether they're going to school or whether I'm getting off work. I try to learn from it. I try not to dwell on this incident. So that's what I've taken away from it.
Firefighter McManigal here. I guess mostly you just, when you reflect back on it, you realize that time is precious, and there's you never know what could happen. It could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. It could happen to me. It could happen to anyone in your family, anything at any given time. So you just want to take every moment you can with your family and make sure you show them that you love them and how much you care about them.
So let's shift to what you all and the department learned from this, and then anything that you've changed as a result of this happening. So the lessons learned.
Yeah, the lessons learned for me, I know, is, like I had said before, is making sure that I don't do things on my own that I shouldn't. I need to be better at asking for help. That would have made all the difference in this situation. Having an SOP now that demands you have a spotter when you use an aerial is a huge deal, because it really keeps you from doing these things on your own anymore. Just being aware of my surroundings. The hardest part's been, it would have been easier for me had I hit a power line on a call that I wasn't familiar with on an incident, as opposed to hitting power lines that that are there. So it's just being aware, even in the mundane day-to-day activities, because those things seem to get you before anything else does.
I guess up at the station too, though, I don't know if Tom sent you the pictures. I called Excel, and we've been working together with them to put flags on the lines up there. And then also this spring, once it gets a little nicer, we're going to actually paint stripes below the lines. So either way, if you're looking down or up, that should be a good indicator to go, oh, yeah, that's right, those lines are there. It might seem silly, but another thing, too, we've looked at is possibly just making lines on the pavement, saying if you're going to be setting the apparatus up on that approach, that you do it behind this line, which still, even if it's fully extended out, you would hit these lines, but this is just another way of just hopefully, making everybody aware that this has happened, it could happen again, and also to just seeing those would hopefully remind people on other scenes and other areas that, oh, that's right, this has happened. One thing we always joke about around our department is when an incident happens, sometimes that something gets named after the person, and so it's etched into everybody's memory, which is one positive, is hopefully that everybody will remember this and it will never happen again, and we don't ever have to worry about this again, and hopefully that's what we can take away from this.
As a firefighter, this is Firefighter Alvey. As a firefighter, I notice power lines now. down the alleys of some of the houses, or just the power lines connecting to the houses, I should say, for raising ladders to get up on the roofs.
This is McManigal again. Since I still work up at Station 7, I see these power lines every time I go into work. And it just makes me more aware that they're there, and helps me realize that if there is a roving driver out there, or even our regular driver, that probably be a good idea to be out there spotting for him and making sure that he realizes those wires can be closer than they appear.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to note that this happened in the daytime, not nighttime where maybe vision would be obstructed from darkness.
Yeah, we had no weather issues at all. I mean, it was a little chilly, but there was no wind. Sun was bright, but it was a nice, like you said, a nice clear day. There really wasn't any kind of a weather factor at all.
Mm-hmm. Did the department conduct any kind of a formal review of the incident?
As soon as it happened, I actually had to sit down, write it up, what happened, and Tom did also. And that had to be submitted to our battalion, and then we were just questioning a little bit more about it, but not in a formal manner. They were really more concerned that nobody was hurt. But otherwise, really, investigation, they came up when it happened. I went over what happened with our battalion, and he passed that on up the chain of command.
Anything else you guys want to add before we close out?
I guess the only thing I would like to add is when you were talking about had there been a fatality or anything like that, how would it have changed, how you did change things. And I know had things turned and that had happened where there had been fatalities and I would have been the survivor, there's no way that I would have been able to continue on the job. There's no way. I think about that, and to be a lone survivor of that type of thing that's been something that I've thought about, and that would have really changed my life and changed my career for sure. So, other than that, I just, like I said, I want to do everything I can, and my crew does too, to tell this story and try to keep it from happening to somebody else. I'm going to try to keep people safe, including myself, and it sucks that it had to happen to me, but it's kind of what I've been given, and I'm trying to turn it into a positive.
Yeah, what you guys have done here is you've given the fire service a gift, and that is the gift of sharing your lived experiences with an almost extremely tragic event. And the beautiful thing about having a platform like this podcast is that I can give voice to people who've lived to tell a story. And if the outcome would have been different, this story wouldn't be told. And you guys survived, and you got a story to tell, and you were willing to share the story with the mindset that if others can learn from this, and this wouldn't happen again as a result of what happened to us and sharing this experience, then the fire service will be made better as a result of your willingness to step up. And I know that it cannot be a moment of pride to say, well, we're really proud that we had this happen. And Tom, you and I had talked, before, and it was very easy for me to sense your embarrassment about having it happen, and how you wished, that in just a moment you would have done something different and it wouldn't have happened. But it speaks volumes to all of you and to your department and to your administration to allow you guys to come on to the show and to share this experience with others. Because if people listening to this podcast are doing what I'm doing, I'm sitting here in my mind saying, wow, wow, was that close? Wow, I would never want to be the one to have to turn to my family and try to explain what just happened here. And I just want to thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing these experience that you had, because truly it is just one of those wow stories of just how dangerous this job can be, and how just in a moment's event, just the slightest lapse in awareness can result in such tragedy for us. So thanks to all of you for coming on and sharing that story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Ryan Cox, Fire Apparatus Operator Tom Reel, Firefighter Jay McManigal, and Firefighter John Alvey, for sharing the details of your near-miss event. An event that, if the circumstances were just slightly different, could have left 4 widows and orphaned 13 children. I commend you, gentlemen. It takes a great deal of courage to come forward and to share your experiences on a platform like this so that others may learn. Oh, I'm sure there is others out there who won't learn anything other than how to criticize the event. Those people don't learn anything but how to criticize. It's tragic, but it happens. If you've experienced or witnessed the near miss and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned so that others could benefit from them, please contact me by visiting the SA Matters website, clicking on the Contact Us link on the top of the home page. Think about that for a minute. The courage that you display to share the lessons that you've learned from your near-miss event could save the life of another first responder. If you want to share your experiences, contact me. If you haven't subscribed to the SA Matters radio podcast yet, please consider taking a moment to go over to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and subscribe. And while you're there, please consider leaving some feedback on the show. If you like the show, please consider giving it a 5-star review. This is really important because it inspires me to work harder for you. A lot of time and effort goes into producing, recording, editing a show, lining up guests, and things like that. And your feedback lets me know that you appreciate the effort. In case you haven't heard, I recently released the 3rd book in the Situational Awareness Matters series. The book contains critical lessons on improving situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. If you want a copy, you can get it at SA Matters website store or through Amazon.com. If you know of a business that might be interested in supporting the Situational Awareness Matters mission with a sponsorship, I'm seeking a few select sponsors to help offset the cost of running the website, social media, podcast, YouTube channel, the monthly newsletter, and all the other free content. The website has enjoyed over 1 million visits, and the visitors have downloaded over 4 million pages of content. New blog posts go up every Friday. The Situational Awareness Matters newsletter is distributed to thousands of first responders monthly. The podcast that you're listening to now has new episodes that come out every Tuesday and has been downloaded over 85,000 times. So if you know of a business that might want to get their message in front of our visitors, subscribers, and supporters, ask them to contact me through the SAMatters.com website Contact Us link. A huge thank you to Midwest Fire for renewing your commitment to our mission by signing on to sponsor this podcast for the 2nd year. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners, please consider joining. There are over 5,000 members connected here on SA Matters, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train members to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. Membership is free, and when you sign up, I'll send you a special report that I've created just for the new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. So if you're not a member yet, head over to SAMatters.com. Click on the red box on the right side of the homepage, the red box that says free membership. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can follow @Rich Gasaway or @SA Matters on Twitter. The SA Matters Twitter community is approaching 17,000 followers of our mission, and thank you to everyone who's connected with me there. You can also get connected on Facebook by joining our private Facebook page. It's free. To do that, just go to facebook.com/groups/SA Matters. There's an enticement to join the private Facebook group. I have a coupon code in there for 50% off the new book that I wrote. That'll save you $20. On LinkedIn, you can also find me by searching Rich Gasaway. Well, that's it. Episode 101 is complete. Thank you again to our guests from the Sioux Falls Fire Department, Captain Ryan Cox, Fire Apparatus Operator Tom Reel, Firefighter Jay McManigal, and Firefighter John Alvey. Thank you to our podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all of our live event hosts. And thank you, our listeners, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.